Well, hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to do pressure canning of some white corn. Just got back from our trip to the restaurant supply store, and I've got 8 pounds of white corn. We're going to pressure can this in these jars. Stick around. Think you'll enjoy this? I know we will when we get to eat it. Alright YouTube, Jerry here with Sensible Survival Solutions, and we're going to do this white corn pressure canned in my pressure power cooker here. Some things that we're going to do to add to it to make it ready to eat when we're ready to open the can. What we don't do is season it and cook it when it's time to eat. We do all the seasoning and cooking ahead of time. It makes it better for our food storage for an emergency situation where if you don't have power, you can't cook it. And if you don't have the right kind of seasonings, you're looking for something you want to be just open and eat. Heat and eat if you want to. But this doesn't even have to be heated, it's that good. So one of the things that we're going to add to it is we're going to add a little butter, powdered butter. I get mine from Honeyville. It's a supply store out of Utah. It comes, well, I'll tell you, it's just powdered butter. It's all it is. And it is good. You take a spoon of this and just take a taste, and it just tastes like butter. So for our jars, we're going to add 1 teaspoon, actually 2 teaspoons of butter to each jar. And then and I'm doing just 5 jars because that's what our pressure canner holds, is 5. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons in each one of the jars. You don't add real butter because real butter contains fat, and that doesn't pressure can very well. So don't do real butter. The powdered butter has been kind of dehydrated, and some of the fat's been taken out. So it's better for you if you're going to use it. Just use it as powdered butter in your long-term food storage, and you'll be fine. Okay. Next up, we're going to use a little salt in each one. 1/8 of a teaspoon is all we do. And I do it kind of loose. It's a loose measurement, but it's about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Next is we do a Cajun seasoning. We use one from Louisiana. See if you can pronounce that. It's Tony Chachere's. So that's who we use. Been using this for decades. I love this stuff. So we're going to put in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of this. Doesn't make it too hot. It just does give it just a little bit of a kick. Now, that's all we're going to add to the jars before we start adding the corn. In this case, I've taken the corn over to the sink and I've washed it out. Now we're going to add the corn to the jars. This corn came to me frozen this morning. It's an 8-pound bag of frozen corn. We buy our vegetables from this warehouse. Today we got white corn, yellow corn, speckled butter beans. We got lima beans. So we're going to be doing those in subsequent videos. But you'll see how those work out for us. When you're doing your long-term food storage, you don't want to just rely on one type, such as just pressure canning. You want to have a variety of things that will allow you to use your resources wisely in case of an emergency. And that might be that you'll have some foods that are dehydrated, some that are packaged, some that are store-bought, You'll have just a mixture of those items. And then depending upon the emergency and the situation you find yourself in, then you'll pick the one that's best for you and your family. I know from past experience that I'll get about 15 jars out of this 8 pounds of corn. So when I get through with these 5, I'll go ahead and, while we're off camera, and do the rest. But you want to fill these up to where they are right at 1 inch from the top, or this little line right here. So those now are filled up. What you have to do next is add water. So hang on a second, let me get the water and I'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the water in. And you want that to come up to the 1 inch mark from the top of the jar. Okay, all done. So now I've had my lids on the stove heating up and getting hot. We're about ready to do those now. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the jar lids so we can get any of the kind of, my wife calls it goober. I'm going to get the goober off the rims of the jars. There's that. Now we'll take the magnetic stick, take them out, and place them on the jars. The reason I'm doing 5 jars at this time is that my pressure canner holds 5. But I'll get the rest of those done here off camera, and we'll be ready to show those in just a little while. Okay, this one's now done. I've got the spices and the butter at the bottom, water filled up to with 1 inch of the top of the jar. This one's ready to go in. In the pressure cooker here at the bottom, I've got a grate that holds, makes the jars level. All these are finger tight. Next, I'm going to add the water to the pressure cooker. What you want it to be is about 1/4 of the way up on the jars inside. It's good enough. If you put too much water, what I've found is it makes the food in the jar bubble out and gets all inside the water. Sometimes that causes the jar not to seal, so you don't want to do that. So I've got the water now about 1/4 of the way up. Let's go ahead and take a look at the controls on the canner here. Now on the front here, it does do multiple modes, so you can do pressure cooking, slow cooking, and in this case we're going to do canning. So I'm going to touch the button to turn on the canner portion, and then I'm going to touch the selector in the middle. It takes it to 45 minutes, then I'm going to up it to 55. You want to do corn for 55 minutes. Now the lid, you got a setting here for cook. This is if you're venting this thing. We're not venting it, we're cooking, so we're going to put it on there. This little button, this is part of the latching system. So when it comes up to pressure, it will seal and not be able to open. So now that's locked. You'll also notice that the dial is moving in a kind of a circular motion. That means it's coming up to steam, coming up to pressure. This will, at my altitude, I'm supposed to cook at 10 pounds of pressure that will then generate enough heat inside to bring it up to 240 degrees. You want the heat is what is going to not only cook the food, but it's going to sterilize it, because botulism cannot live at 240 and above. So you want that pressure, 10 degrees or 10 pounds of pressure will get it up to the 240 degree mark at my level of altitude. If you're at higher altitude, you're going to have to make some adjustments. This pressure cooker will come up to 11.6 pounds. That's what it's designed to do. So that actually means my cooker is going to cook at above 240 degrees, making my food safe for canning. 55 minutes is the recommended time for corn, so we're going to let that run. When it gets to the timer portion and the pressure has come up, the timer will start. And at that point, it's going to go for the 55 minutes. We're going to run around, do other things around the house, and not have to worry about this canner. It will not make any noise to speak of. We can sit here in the next room and just watch television. But the timer will go off when it's done, and then we'll let the pressure canner come down and pressure on its own. It takes about 10 minutes. That's actually part of the cook time, so you need to do that. The heating up process is part of the cook time. The 55 minutes is obviously part of the cook time, and then the cool down is also part of that cook time. You really need to make sure you have all three phases done properly in order to get not only a good seal, but you're going to make the food safe to eat. So at this point, just let this run, and we'll come back in a little while and we'll check on it. All right, I can hear the pressure cooker now is starting to come up to steam. It's got this bubbling inside. It will now vent some of the air that's inside to allow it to come up to the proper amount of pressure. I went ahead and finished the rest of the jars. We're now putting the vans on. One thing that I think I failed to mention on the first batch is that when you've got the product in, you might want to go ahead and take this little tool here and stick it in and get the bubbles out. That way you might get more product into those jars, create a little more headspace. What I wound up with were 14 jars. So I'll be doing 3 sessions of canning. The first one's here. There's the second one. And here's the last one. Ready to go. On deck, ready to wait. So with 55 minutes each, we're probably looking at an hour and a half per session to do the pressure canning. So when one of them comes out, I'll spread them out on the counter so they can cool and seal, and then put the next one in. All right, it's been the 55 minutes is up. We're going to check the canner to make sure that there's no pressure before we take off the lid. The way to do that is to turn this knob on the back to the vent setting. Nothing coming out. So the lid should be safe now to take off. Let's take it. If it's not, it won't let me turn it. So let's see if it'll let me turn it. It is. So this is now safe. I'm going to open it with the lid, making the steam go away from me so I don't get burned. And these things are still hot. I'll bring one around for you to see. You can notice that the jar is still bubbling. It is still hot, so it's still cooking. So this is part of the cooking process. These now, as we pull them out, we'll let them sit on the counter. As you see, I got a towel down, so we don't want these hot jars sitting on the counter because they could burn the counter, and we don't want that, obviously. So here's all 5 of our jars. And as they cool, the pressure inside will suck that lid down and make it pop. And that'll let us know that that jar has been properly sealed. Now, if they don't seal, guess what we're having for dinner? We're having corn. So it's not always a bad thing. Fortunately, though, most often, I'll say the vast majority of our cans do seal properly, and then they will go into our food storage. So this is really simple, really easy to do. I hope you've seen that. and it's also really good. These will be heat and eat meals, and then now we don't have to worry about cooking the corn when we're in with a power down or grid down situation. We just kind of open the jar and spoon it out and eat it. It'll already be cooked. It'll already be seasoned. It's seasoned how we like it. So I suggest you do the same for your family. Is come up with the seasoning that you like, the amount of seasoning, and then cook your jars to that recipe. I hope you enjoyed it, and come back often. We do a lot more canning. Thank you. All done. 14 jars sealed, all washed, labeled, and ready to go into our long-term food storage. Each jar feeds 3 hungry adults. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, help us build our channel by subscribing to it, and remember to always be ready, be prepared, and be vigilant.